The planet of Xylar was quiet, but the silence was dangerous. Towering spires of metal and glass reached into the purple sky, reflecting the pale sun in sharp angles. Inside one of the largest towers, the Council of Elders moved with cold precision. They were not worried about the outside world. Their concern was something much more important. Their cubs, the next generation of warriors meant to save their dying race. But the cubs were weak, small, curious, and untrained. They were nothing like the fierce soldiers the Council had hoped for. Every day, the elders watched as the young ones stumbled over their own legs or fought playfully instead of seriously. In desperation, they made a forbidden decision. A human would raise them. The idea was dangerous, almost illegal. Humans were unpredictable, emotional, and fragile. Yet, they were adaptable. The Council believed a human could teach the cubs discipline, strength, and cunning, qualities even aliens could not fully instill. Far away, on a planet called Earth, a man named Alex lived an ordinary life. He never expected to be chosen for an alien experiment. One moment he was walking home from work, and the next, a blinding light engulfed him. He felt weightless, then landed softly on a cold metallic floor. Alex opened his eyes. The ceiling was high, the walls gleamed, and strange machines hummed quietly around him. Before he could move, a group of small creatures appeared. They looked like animals, but taller and more human-like. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their movements were sharp and precise. "They are the cubs," a voice said in his mind. Alex jumped. The voice wasn't coming from any mouth he could see. "They will be your responsibility. Train them, raise them, or we will do it ourselves. And you will not survive the consequences." Alex swallowed hard. He had no choice. He nodded silently, though he didn't know what he agreed to. The first day was chaos. The cubs sniffed at him, hissed, and ran in unpredictable directions. One leapt onto a table, knocking over strange instruments. Another cornered him, its tiny claws clicking against the metal floor. Alex froze, heart pounding. He quickly realized that these were not ordinary creatures. They were fast, stronger than they looked, and startlingly intelligent. Yet, there was something human in their curiosity, something that made Alex feel both afraid and responsible. Over the next few days, Alex began learning their patterns. Each cub had its own personality. One was reckless, rushing into danger without thinking. Another was cautious, observing everything with sharp, calculating eyes. The smallest cub, barely bigger than a dog, seemed to understand Alex in ways he couldn't explain. It would mimic his movements, follow him silently, and sometimes stare at him as if it could read his thoughts. The aliens monitored everything from afar. Screens showed Alex teaching the cubs, guiding them, scolding them when they made mistakes. The Council of Elders frowned. They had expected obedience, not affection. They had wanted soldiers, not children who might question orders or feel loyalty toward a human. Alex found small ways to survive the pressure. He created routines for the cubs, mealtime, exercise, and games that secretly taught them skills. He noticed that when he was kind, they learned faster. When he was harsh, they resisted. And sometimes in the dead of night, he would watch them sleep and wonder what they would become. Then something happened that changed everything. One cub, the reckless one, wandered into a room filled with alien weapons. Alex ran after it, shouting warnings. Before he could reach it, the cub leapt into the middle of a sparking device. Alex screamed, expecting a fatal accident, but the cub emerged unscathed, glowing faintly, its eyes brighter than ever. Alex froze. The cub had power that should not exist, and it was only one of them. From the screens above, the Council of Elders whispered to each other. This was not supposed to happen. Their experiment was spinning out of control. The human was forming bonds, teaching independence, and the cubs were growing stronger in ways even the aliens could not predict. Alex didn't know if he should be proud or terrified. He had started this journey believing he would survive by following rules. Now, he was part of something bigger, something dangerous. The cubs looked at him with trust, curiosity, and a strange spark of intelligence that no alien could fully control. And in that moment, Alex realized the truth. He was no longer just a teacher. He was a guardian. And whatever came next, there would be no turning back. Outside, the purple sky shimmered. Somewhere, far above the metal towers, the stars watched silently. On Xylar, the first whispers of regret began to stir among the elders. The forbidden experiment had begun, and no one knew how it would end. The morning on Xylar began with a strange silence. The towers glimmered under the pale sun, but inside, Alex could feel tension in the air. The cubs were restless. Last night's events had changed them, though they didn't yet understand why. Alex entered the training room, carrying a small bag of supplies, food, tools, and a few human gadgets he thought might help teach the cubs. The room smelled of metal and faint alien energy, a scent that made him uneasy. The cubs noticed him immediately. Their glowing eyes followed his every movement. One, the reckless cub from yesterday, leaped onto wall, balancing with ease. Another sat calmly, watching. The smallest cub sat at Alex's feet, tilting its head as if waiting for instructions. Today, Alex began, his voice steady, we learn how to fight smart. Not just fast, but smart. The cubs tilted their heads. They didn't understand the words, but they understood his tone. Alex grabbed a small stick and demonstrated simple movements. Push, strike, dodge. At first, the cubs imitated him clumsily, stumbling over their legs or crashing into walls. But Alex smiled. Mistakes were part of learning. For hours, the room filled with sound of scuffling, clicks, and occasional growls. Alex corrected postures, praised small successes, and gently pushed the cubs when they hesitated. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The cubs began to respond to his guidance, their movements sharper, faster, more precise. It was during a break that Alex noticed something strange. The cautious cub had picked up a small gadget from the floor, a device used by the aliens for scanning energy. The cub tilted it, examined it, then dropped it gently beside Alex. Alex's heart skipped. They understand more than I thought. Then the reckless cub suddenly froze, its eyes glowing bright red. Something in the room changed. The air thickened, and a low hum vibrated through the walls. Alex's stomach dropped. The cub's small body moved like lightning, knocking over obstacles with perfect precision, landing without a sound. Alex stepped back. The cubs were not just learning, they were evolving. Each lesson seemed to unlock something hidden, something even the aliens had not anticipated. The Council of Elders observed silently through their screens. Their faces were tight with worry. This human is dangerous, one elder whispered. He is teaching them to think, to feel, to question. Alex ignored the warnings of the alien monitors. He couldn't turn back now. The cubs were counting on him. And strangely, he realized he was counting on them too. By afternoon, the cubs had learned basic combat skills and human strategies. But Alex wanted more. He wanted them to understand choices, not just follow orders blindly. He created a simple game. The cubs had to navigate a small maze filled with obstacles and traps. If they followed only the direct path, they would fail. But if they observed, thought, and adapted, they could succeed. At first, the cubs struggled. Some rushed in recklessly. Others froze, unsure what to do. But gradually, they began working together, communicating through gestures and low growls. Alex's heart swelled. They were learning teamwork, intelligence, and even empathy. Then came the moment that shocked Alex. And the aliens, a hidden trap in the maze activated, threatening to strike one of the cubs. The reckless cub, without hesitation, pushed another out of harm's way, taking the risk itself. Its eyes glowed brighter than ever, and it let out a small roar, almost like a human shout of triumph. Alex knelt, astonished. You saved it, he whispered. The cub stared at him, almost as if it understood the weight of its action. On the alien screens, panic spread among the elders. They muttered in disbelief. They are forming loyalty, not to us, but to the human. This was never supposed to happen. The day ended with the cubs exhausted, but alert. Alex sat quietly in the corner, observing them as they curled up in small piles. Each cub had learned something new, not just skills, but values. The first lessons that could make them more than soldiers. Alex knew it was only the beginning. The cubs were powerful, smarter than the aliens predicted, and forming bonds he could never break. But he also realized the danger. If the elders discovered the depth of their training, if they saw the cubs developing independence, the consequences could be deadly. And as the pale sun set over Xylar, casting long shadows across the towers, Alex felt a mix of hope and fear. The first lesson was over, but the real test was only beginning. Somewhere in the observation chamber, an elder muttered, almost to itself, "Perhaps we made a mistake." The cubs slept, unaware of the silent battle forming around them. The battle for control, for freedom, and for the future. Alex watched them, a strange smile on his face. He was their teacher, their guardian, and perhaps the only chance they had to survive what was coming next. The morning sun on Xylar was pale, but inside the training hall, tension crackled like electricity. Alex walked slowly between the cubs, observing them. They were restless, their small bodies brimming with energy. He had taught them the basics of combat, strategy, and teamwork, but today he had something different in mind. "This lesson is about control," Alex said softly. "Control over yourselves and control over your strength." The cubs tilted their heads, watching him carefully. They didn't fully understand the words, but they understood the tone. One cub, the reckless one, bounced on its toes, eager to begin. Another, the cautious cub, stood back, calculating every movement. Alex started with a simple exercise. He had laid out a series of obstacles, each designed to test speed, strength, and reflexes. The cubs moved quickly, faster than Alex expected. They dodged, leaped, and rolled with surprising precision. Yet, their greatest challenge was not physical. It was learning to harness the strange powers they had begun to show. The reckless cub stumbled, then stopped abruptly. Its eyes glowed brighter than before, a faint light pulsing from its body. Suddenly, it lifted several heavy metal crates with ease, stacking them neatly. Alex's heart raced. This power, it's growing faster than I imagined. The cautious cub observed, then concentrated. A low hum filled the room, and objects around it vibrated gently. A small sphere floated in the air, spinning slowly. Alex's jaw dropped. The cubs weren't just strong. They could manipulate energy in ways the aliens themselves had not predicted. From the observation chamber, the elders whispered anxiously. "This is impossible," one muttered. "A human has accelerated their evolution. They were supposed to be soldiers, not this." Alex realized that with guidance, the cubs could do incredible things. But the danger was real. These abilities could destroy the entire facility if uncontrolled. He took a deep breath and approached the reckless cub. "Focus," he said, holding out a small metal sphere. "Use your strength to lift it gently. Not too fast, not too slow. Control." The cub's muscles tensed, and its glowing eyes dimmed slightly. Slowly, carefully, it lifted the sphere and placed it on a pedestal. Alex nodded. "Good. You are learning control. That is more important than raw power." The cubs began to take turns, each demonstrating a unique ability. Some could leap incredible distances. Others manipulated small objects with precise thought, and the smallest cub emitted a faint light that seemed to calm the room. Alex watched in awe. Each ability had a purpose, and each cub was learning to combine instinct with thought. But then, something alarming happened. The reckless cub, excited by its own success, leaped too high and struck a panel on the wall. Sparks flew, and a low alarm sounded. The other cubs froze, sensing danger. Alex ran forward, heart pounding, but the cub didn't panic. It lifted the panel carefully, preventing further damage. Alex swallowed hard. They are becoming more than soldiers, more than I can control. That night, as the cubs slept in small piles, Alex sat outside the training hall. He thought about what he had seen. The cubs were not just learning, they were evolving, developing intelligence, strategy, and empathy. Their powers were growing, unpredictable and wild. And yet, they had chosen Protect, to follow guidance and to trust him. From the observation chamber, the elders argued in sharp tones. "We must intervene," one said. "The human has gone too far. The cubs are no longer tools, they are threats." But another elder hesitated. "Perhaps we underestimated the human. Perhaps this bond is necessary." Alex did not know that his actions were being discussed. He only knew that the cubs had potential far beyond what anyone expected. He worried, too, about the consequences. If the elders acted too soon, if the cubs were forced into combat before they were ready, there could be disaster. The next morning, Alex began a new exercise. He set up a challenge that combined agility, strength, and critical thinking. The cubs moved in perfect synchrony, their abilities complementing each other. One cub lifted a heavy block, while another used energy manipulation to clear a path, and the smallest cub guided them with its light. Alex's heart swelled with pride. "You are ready," he whispered. "Ready for what comes next." But deep inside, a knot of fear twisted in his stomach. The cub's powers were a gift, but also a warning. If the elders learned how advanced they had become, there would be no turning back. The forbidden experiment had taken a dangerous turn. And somewhere in the council chamber, the first real whisper of regret slipped from an elder's lips. "We should never have used a human." Outside, the sky shimmered faintly, and the towers cast long, dark shadows across the planet. The cubs slept, dreaming of unknown possibilities, while Alex sat awake, knowing that tomorrow's lessons would push them and him further than ever before. The forbidden experiment was no longer just about creating soldiers. It was about creating something extraordinary, something that might change the fate of both humans and aliens alike. The hallways of the alien tower were cold and silent. Alex moved carefully, his mind racing. The cubs had grown stronger and smarter each day, and now he realized the full truth. If the elders discovered the extent of their abilities, the cubs would be weaponized beyond control. He had to act. Alex gathered the cubs in the training room. They were energetic, curious, and ready for a new challenge, though they did not understand his words fully. "We need to move," Alex said softly. "We need to go somewhere safe." The cubs tilted their heads, sensing urgency. The reckless cub circled him, growling softly, while the cautious cub stayed close, eyes wide and alert. The smallest cub nuzzled Alex's leg, almost as if giving silent approval. The plan was simple in theory, but dangerous in practice. They would need to avoid the main corridors, sneak past guards, and use their powers carefully to remain undetected. Alex knew that even a single mistake could end everything. That night, the training hall was quiet. Alex led the cubs to a service hatch he had discovered days ago. It was small, narrow, and almost invisible, hidden behind a panel. They crawled inside, one by one, hearts pounding. The hatch led to a series of tunnels beneath the tower. The cubs moved silently, their enhanced senses helping them avoid patrols and detection devices. Alex was amazed. Every step they took showed intelligence, caution, and trust. The cubs had learned more than he had expected. Suddenly, a soft alarm echoed through the tunnels. Alex froze. He knew the elders must have noticed something was wrong. The cubs pressed close, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Stay calm," Alex whispered. "We stick together, we move as one." The reckless cub darted forward, checking corners, while the cautious cub used his energy abilities to disable a security sensor. The smallest cub followed, glowing softly, guiding them through the dark. Alex could not help but marvel at their abilities. They were not just soldiers. They were a team, a family, and perhaps the only hope for survival. The tunnels twisted and turned, leading them beneath the central tower. Outside, they could see the alien city stretching endlessly, towers rising like jagged teeth. Alex realized how far they had to go. The surface was dangerous, full of patrols and watchtowers. But staying underground was not an option. The cubs needed space, and he needed freedom for them. Hours passed as they navigated the labyrinth. Every step tested their patience, their skills, and their trust in each other. The cubs communicated silently, coordinating movements, alerting Alex to danger and protecting one another. Alex's heart pounded with pride and fear. At last, they reached a vent that led to the surface. Alex pried it open carefully. A faint breeze from outside touched their faces. Freedom was close, but so was danger. Suddenly, a patrol rounded a corner. Alex's blood ran cold. The cubs froze. But in an instant, they reacted as one. The reckless cub leapt forward, distracting the guards, while the cautious cub used its powers to manipulate the environment, creating a small barrier of floating debris. The smallest cub glowed brightly, blinding the patrol momentarily. Alex took the chance to slip past, leading the cubs toward the city's outskirts. The patrol recovered, but it was too late. Alex and the cubs disappeared into the shadows. Once they were safe in a hidden alcove, Alex allowed himself a brief moment to breathe. He looked at the cubs, exhausted but alive and stronger than ever. They had followed his lead, trusted him completely, and used their abilities in ways he had not imagined. But even in that moment of relief, Alex knew the danger was far from over. The elders would not forget this escape. They would hunt them, and if caught, the cubs could be destroyed, or worse, weaponized against everything they cared about. Alex knelt, placing a hand on the smallest cub. "We're not safe yet," he said softly, "but we've taken the first step. We've shown them we are not theirs to control." The cubs responded in their own way, low growls, small nods, and a quiet energy that filled Alex with hope. They were more than soldiers now. They were free thinkers, powerful beings, and perhaps to start a new future. Above them, the alien towers loomed dark and silent, watching. The forbidden experiment had failed in ways the elders could never have anticipated. The human had not only taught the cubs, but had also shown them a new path, one of independence, trust, and courage. And somewhere in the council chamber, the first true whispers of fear slipped from the elders' lips. "We may have created something we cannot control." The night stretched on, but Alex did not sleep. He watched the cubs as they rested, feeling the weight of responsibility. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, and new lessons. But for the first time, he knew that they had a chance to survive, to grow, and to change the fate of both humans and aliens alike. The escape was only the beginning. The hidden alcove where Alex and the cubs had taken shelter was quiet, but tension hung in the air like a storm about to break. The cubs were restless, sensing danger even while resting. Alex watched them carefully. He had hoped their escape would buy them time, but he feared the elders would not let it go unanswered. And he was right. Through the pale sky of Xylar, the first patrol ships appeared, glinting like predators in the distance. Alex's heart pounded. The cubs sensed it instantly, their glowing eyes scanning the horizon, muscles tensed, ready to act. "They found us," Alex whispered. "Get ready." The first attack came silently. A squad of armored drones descended, scanning for heat signatures. Alex had prepared the cubs, but this was their first real test. The reckless cub leaped forward, intercepting a drone midair, tossing it aside with incredible strength. Sparks flew, and the other cubs immediately moved in sync, using both agility and energy manipulation to disable the attackers without harming themselves. But the elders had more than just patrol drones. From the skies above, elite soldiers descended, their armor shining with deadly precision. Alex realized that the full weight of alien power was coming at them. In the chaos, a sense of betrayal struck Alex. One of the cubs, a smaller one he had trusted implicitly, hesitated. Alex froze for a moment. Then he realized. The cub had been confused, unsure of its loyalty. But before he could act, the smaller cub stepped fully into the fight, defending its siblings, showing that their bond had surpassed fear. The battle was fierce but short. The cub's abilities overwhelmed the alien's technology. Sparks, glowing energy, and the sound of metal clashing filled the alcove. Alex was amazed at their courage and coordination. They were not just following his lessons. They were thinking, adapting, and protecting each other. After the dust settled, Alex approached the cubs. "You did well," he said softly, pride and relief mixing in his voice. "But they will come back, stronger, and they will bring reinforcements." The cubs listened, silent but attentive. They seemed to understand that this fight was only the beginning. That night, Alex considered their options. They could not stay hidden forever. The elders would escalate their attacks, using whatever means necessary to reclaim the cubs. Alex realized that survival meant moving forward, planning carefully and anticipating every possible threat. But the true betrayal came not from the elders. It came from within. One of the cubs, the smallest and previously quietest, approached Alex. Its eyes glowed faintly, but there was a hesitation he had not seen before. The cub had sensed something, an observation device he had missed, a hidden camera inside the alcove. Alex's stomach sank. The elders had been watching more closely than he realized. He felt a pang of guilt and fear. Every lesson he had given, every moment of trust, had been observed by those who wanted to control the cubs. He had thought he was guiding them, protecting them, but the elders knew every move. The realization hit Alex like a blow. Their freedom was more fragile than he had imagined. The elders had anticipated their escape. And now, the human who had dared to defy the council was on borrowed time. As dawn broke, Alex gathered the cubs once more. "We cannot stay," he said firmly. "They know too much. We need a plan that they cannot predict." The cubs nodded, understanding in their own way. They had learned loyalty, courage, and strategy. They had learned to fight, to protect, and to survive. But the elders had learned too. They knew the human had become more than a teacher, and the cubs had become more than soldiers. Alex realized that the betrayal was not just external. It was the knowledge that their actions, their growth, and their freedom were constantly being watched. Every lesson, every bond, had been observed by those who could strike at any moment. The days stretched on with tension thick in the air. Alex led the cubs to a new hiding place, deeper in the cliffs surrounding the city. They moved silently, alert to every sound, every shadow. And as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange, Alex knew one thing. The real test was just beginning. The elders would not stop. They would bring more forces, more strategies, more dangers. And Alex and the cubs would have to face them together, or risk losing everything. In the quiet darkness, the cubs huddled around Alex. Their small bodies glowed softly, a symbol of power, hope, and unity. Alex placed a hand on the reckless cub, then on the cautious one, then on the smallest. "We fight together," he whispered, "and we survive together." Far above, the alien towers shimmered ominously. Somewhere, in the observation chambers, the elders whispered with unease. The forbidden experiment had spiraled out of control, and for the first time, the Council of Elders truly feared what they had created. The cliffs overlooking the alien city were quiet, but the air was tense. Alex and the cubs had taken refuge, hidden from the eyes of the elders. For the first time, he allowed himself to observe them, not just as his students, but as beings capable of independent thought. The reckless cub paced along the cliff edge, muscles coiled and ready. The cautious cub crouched nearby, eyes scanning the city for signs of danger. And the smallest cub, glowing faintly, stayed close to Alex, almost as if offering silent counsel. Alex realized something extraordinary. The cubs were no longer following instructions blindly. They were thinking strategically, assessing threats, and planning moves before he could even speak. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Patrol drones swept across the cliffs, searching for signs of life. Alex signaled the cubs to stay hidden, but the cubs had already noticed. They communicated silently, gestures and subtle movements passing between them. The reckless cub moved first, leaping into the path of the drones, drawing them away from their hiding spot. The cautious cub used energy manipulation to disable a nearby sensor, while the smallest cub projected a soft light that distorted their heat signatures. Alex watched in awe. They were not just fighting, they were leading. Every action showed intelligence, coordination, and courage beyond expectation. From the observation chamber, the elders grew frantic. "They are thinking. They are using strategy. The human has gone too far," one elder shouted. Alex realized the truth. The cubs had surpassed what the elders intended. They were not soldiers. They were leaders. And with leadership came choice, independence, and morality. Hours passed, the sun dipping low behind Xylar's towers. The cubs and Alex retreated deeper into the cliffs, avoiding patrols, observing the city. It was then that Alex noticed something remarkable. The cubs were teaching each other. The reckless cub demonstrated agility and power techniques. The cautious cub refined energy control and problem-solving. The smallest cub encouraged observation and empathy, nudging the others to consider consequences before acting. Alex felt pride and fear together. Pride for their growth, fear for the consequences. The elders would not stop. They would escalate. But the cubs were no longer simply following him. They were thinking, acting and protecting each other without guidance. As night fell, Alex gathered them together. "You are ready," he whispered. "Ready to make choices, ready to lead, and ready to survive." The cubs looked at him, eyes glowing softly, a silent promise that they understood. For the first time, Alex saw not just creatures with power, but beings with judgment, courage, and independence. The turning point came silently. A patrol force attempted a surprise attack through the cliffs. Alex tensed, ready to act. But the cubs did not wait for him. The reckless cub used strength to topple rock formations, creating barriers. The cautious cub redirected patrol energy with precise control. The smallest cub guided them with light and signals. Every move was deliberate, every action coordinated. Alex watched in amazement. The cubs were in command. They were leading the fight, not just reacting. They were no longer students. They were leaders, protectors, and strategists. Above, the alien towers flickered with activity. The elders realized something terrifying. The human had not just trained their soldiers. He had created independent beings. Beings they could neither control nor predict. Alex knelt, placing a hand on the smallest cub. "You've grown beyond my guidance," he whispered, "and that is both our strength and our risk." The cubs responded with subtle gestures, low growls, and soft nudges, showing understanding and trust. They were no longer relying solely on him. They were thinking for themselves, a dangerous gift the elders had not foreseen. From the cliffs, Alex watched the alien city below. He realized that the forbidden experiment had changed everything. The cubs had become more than soldiers. They had become leaders capable of choice, empathy, and power. And the elders, despite all their technology and authority, could not undo what had been created. In the quiet of the night, Alex whispered to the cubs, "Tomorrow, we face them fully. But remember, we do this together." And somewhere in the observation chambers, the first real panic rippled through the elders. The turning point had come. The forbidden experiment had spiraled out of control. And for the first time, the elders understood the danger of what they had unleashed. The cubs glowed softly in the darkness, their eyes filled with intelligence and determination. They were ready. And the next battle would not just test strength. It would test the elders' control, the cubs' leadership, and the very future of Xylar itself. The alien towers of Xylar glowed faintly in the early morning light, but inside, panic and uncertainty filled the observation chambers. The Council of Elders sat in tense silence, faces shadowed by worry. Their cubs, once weak and dependent, had grown beyond expectation. And worse, they had learned to think, to act, and to question. "They are not ours anymore," whispered one elder, his voice shaking. "The human, he has gone too far." Another elder slammed a clawed hand against the table. "We made a mistake. We gave him control over their development. We allowed attachment. We allowed freedom." Meanwhile, on the cliffs outside the city, Alex watched the cubs. They had become leaders, protectors, and strategists. Each one was a unique combination of strength, intelligence, and morality. The reckless cub's strength was matched by courage. The cautious cub's precision was guided by thought. And the smallest cub's empathy held the group together, a subtle but powerful force. Alex knew the elders would regret their decision. He had seen it in the way they hesitated, the way they faltered in strategy. But he also knew the danger. The elders were resourceful, cunning, and they would escalate their attacks. The first confrontation came at noon. Elite patrol ships swept across the cliffs, scanning for heat signatures. Alex signaled the cubs, who had already prepared. The reckless cub leapt into the open, using its raw strength to topple debris as barriers. The cautious cub manipulated energy fields, disabling sensors and creating illusions. The smallest cub glowed brightly, confusing and blinding the patrols temporarily. Alex watched, heart pounding, as the cubs executed the plan flawlessly. They moved with intelligence, precision, and unity. And for the first time, the elders realized they could not control these beings. In the observation chamber, the elders muttered among themselves, "We underestimated him. We underestimated them. They are independent, too intelligent, too powerful." Alex knew this was their moment of weakness. The elders' regret had created an opening. The cubs sensed it too. They were no longer following orders. They were leading, adapting, and making choices. Every move was deliberate. Every action had meaning. As the alien forces retreated, Alex approached the cubs. "You see," he whispered, "they cannot stop you. Not if you work together. Not if you think for yourselves." The cubs responded with quiet growls, low gestures, and soft nudges, showing understanding and readiness. They were aware of the elders' fear, and they had learned to use it. Alex realized the full scale of their abilities. The cubs were not just soldiers. They were a new generation, capable of independence, morality, and strategy. And the elders, despite all their power and technology, could do nothing to reverse what had been done. For the first time, the council and the towers admitted aloud, "We have created beings beyond our control, and it is because of a human." Alex smiled faintly. He had trained them not only to survive, but to think, to act, and to protect. He had given them guidance, but he had never imposed control. And now, the cubs' independence was their greatest weapon. That night, the cliffs were quiet. The cubs rested, glowing softly in the darkness, while Alex planned the next moves carefully. They were safe for now, but he knew the elders would not give up. They would come with more forces, more cunning, and more danger. Yet, the cubs were ready. They had learned strategy, empathy, and leadership. They had survived the first major attack, and they had forced the elders to confront their mistakes. Alex knelt beside the smallest cub, placing a hand on its soft fur. "They regret what they did," he whispered, "but regret alone won't save them, or us. We have to keep moving forward." The reckless cub growled softly, a sound of readiness. The cautious cub's eyes scanned the horizon, alert and calculating. And the smallest cub glowed, a steady light of hope and determination. Far above, the towers of Xylar shimmered ominously. The Council of Elders had realized their mistake, and regret filled their halls. But for Alex and the cubs, this realization was power. They had become more than the elders had planned. They had become a force the aliens could neither predict nor control. As night deepened, Alex whispered to the cubs, "Tomorrow we face them fully. But we do it together. We survive together." The cubs huddled around him, their soft glow a symbol of unity, intelligence, and strength. The forbidden experiment had changed everything. The elders' regret was clear, but for Alex and the cubs, it was only a reminder of what they had gained: freedom, choice, and the courage to shape their own destiny. And somewhere in the council chambers, a single elder whispered in fear, almost himself, "We have unleashed something beyond our control, and we cannot undo it." The night was quiet, but the future was not. The cubs glowed softly in the dark, ready for what was coming, stronger than the elders had ever imagined. The first light of dawn painted the alien towers of Xylar in shades of gold and purple. The city below hummed with activity, but the cliffs where Alex and the cubs had taken refuge were calm, almost peaceful. For the first time, Alex allowed himself to breathe fully. They had survived every test, every attack, and every manipulation from the elders. The cubs stood together, a small but formidable group. The reckless cub flexed its muscles, ready for anything. The cautious cub's eyes scanned the horizon, alert for danger. The smallest cub glowed softly, its light steady, almost like a heartbeat of hope. Alex approached them, pride swelling in his chest. "You have grown beyond what I ever imagined," he whispered. "And now, it is time to shape your own future." The cubs responded with low growls and soft gestures, showing understanding. They no longer relied solely on him. They had become independent, capable of making choices and ready to lead. Far below, the alien city stirred. The elders had regrouped, their regret still heavy, but now tinged with fear. They realized that they could no longer control what they had created. The cubs had evolved beyond soldiers. They were leaders, strategists, and beings with empathy and morality. Alex knew they had to decide: stay hidden, continue running, or take a stand. He looked at the cubs. "We can survive. We can thrive. And we can show them a new way, one that does not rely on fear or control." The cubs understood. Together, they descended from the cliffs, moving carefully toward the outskirts of the city. Their presence was cautious but confident. Every movement showed intelligence, coordination, and trust. As they approached the city's edge, they encountered a group of alien patrols. But this time there was no panic. The cubs acted with precision and strategy, disabling the patrols without causing serious harm. Their goal was not destruction. It was freedom. From the observation towers, the elders watched in disbelief. "They are leading themselves," one elder muttered. "They do not rely on human guidance. They choose their own path." Alex led the cubs to a hidden valley outside the city, a place of safety and space. The cubs explored, testing their abilities, learning from the land and from each other. The reckless cub raced across open fields, leaping over rocks and trees with astonishing agility. The cautious cub practiced energy control and strategy, analyzing the environment. The smallest cub glowed steadily, guiding and encouraging the others, offering wisdom beyond its size. For the first time, Alex realized the full impact of their journey. The cubs were not just survivors. They were pioneers. They represented a new era, a future where intelligence, morality, and power could coexist, and they had the ability to reshape the destiny of Xylar itself. The elders attempted to communicate, sending emissaries and messages of negotiation. But Alex knew the cubs would decide for themselves. They had learned loyalty, courage, and empathy, but they also understood freedom and choice. In the quiet valley, Alex knelt beside the cubs. "The elders regret what they did," he said softly, "but regret alone cannot change the past. We can only shape the future." The cubs responded with low, reassuring growls, their glowing eyes reflecting determination. They were ready to lead, to protect, and to grow. They had survived the forbidden experiment, and they had become something extraordinary. As the sun rose higher, the first patrols approached cautiously. But instead of fear, the cubs greeted them with calm authority. Their confidence, intelligence, and empathy were undeniable. Slowly, the elders began to see the truth. The cubs were no longer mere tools. They were leaders capable of guiding Xylar toward a future free of fear and control. Alex watched, heartful. He had taught them, guided them, and protected them. But it was their choices, their courage, and their unity that had truly shaped this new era. The cubs stood at the edge of the valley, looking toward the city, then back at Alex. They were ready for whatever came next, stronger and wiser than anyone had anticipated. And somewhere high in the alien towers, an elder whispered, almost reverently, "Perhaps this is the future we could never have imagined." The valley was quiet again, but this time it was a calm filled with hope. The cubs glowed softly, their presence a symbol of courage, intelligence, and freedom. The forbidden experiment had ended, not with control, but with independence, not with fear, but with hope. Alex smiled. "This is your world now," he said, "and you will lead it wisely." The cubs looked at him, then at the horizon. Together, they stepped forward, ready to create a new era, one shaped by choice, courage, and an extraordinary bond between a human and the cubs he had raised. The stars above Xylar shimmered faintly, as if watching the beginning of a story that had only just started.